There is a particular kind of exhaustion that no one ever prepares you for. Not the tiredness that drags your body after a long shift or the foggy heaviness of a sleepless night. No, this one lives deeper. This exhaustion settles into the marrow of your bones, into the quiet corners of your chest where no one can see it. You have been crying out to heaven with everything you have. You have opened your hands, bowed your head, laid your raw and trembling heart before God night after night. And what came back was silence. Not a whisper, not a nudge. Just the crushing, unbearable weight of a prayer that seemed to bounce off the ceiling and fall back down on you like ash. You watched the people around you step into breakthroughs, receive directions, walk confidently into open doors, while you kept circling the same mountain, asking the same questions, waiting for a sign that never seemed to arrive. And in the darkest, loneliest corner of those long nights, the cruelest thought crept in. It moved so quietly, you almost did not catch it. It said, "What if I am not really chosen? What if I have been wrong about myself this whole time?" You need to hear this clearly, and you need to hear it before anything else. You are not wrong. The silence you experienced was never God turning his back on you. It was never punishment dressed as absence or rejection wearing the costume of delay. There is something happening in the invisible architecture of your life that your natural eyes were never designed to perceive on their own. The silence was not abandonment, it was interference. And there is a profound difference between those two things, because abandonment means someone left, while interference means someone is afraid of what happens when you finally get through. Heaven was broadcasting the whole time. The enemy's assignment was to make sure you could not receive it. There is a reason your signal has been jammed. There is a reason the confusion felt so specific, so persistent, so targeted, because it was. You have been carrying something in your spirit that is so dangerous to the kingdom of darkness that hell assigned specialized frequencies to block your reception. The disruption in your life was not random noise. It was a military operation against your clarity. And now, walking into your home at the end of a long day, you have felt it in your chest before you even opened the door. There is a particular weight that settles over you when you cross the threshold of a space that should feel like rest and instead feels like more work. You set your keys down on the counter, you breathe in, and the house receives you the same way it always does, which is to say, it does not receive you at all. Not truly. The people inside are present. They are physically in the room, but their eyes do not lift to see your exhaustion. They do not notice the specific way your shoulders are carrying something that words cannot name. You pour a glass of water, you lean against the counter, and somewhere underneath the mundane noise of the television and the distant conversation, your soul releases a sigh so deep it has no sound. This is the loneliness that hides in plain sight. Not the loneliness of an empty apartment, but the loneliness of a person surrounded by people who cannot see what they are looking at. Your body is present. Your spirit is somewhere they have never been able to follow. That is why in the trilogy, The 3 Keys to a Prosperous Life, the link is in the pinned comment, I explain that the loneliness of the chosen one is not a social failure. It is a spiritual positioning. The distance you have always felt between yourself and the people closest to you was not a defect in your design. It was the first evidence of your frequency. You were never supposed to fit seamlessly into spaces built for a different signal. The discomfort you felt in rooms where everyone else seemed perfectly at ease was not proof that something was wrong with you. It was proof that you were tuned to a different broadcast, one that those rooms did not have the capacity to receive. I need you to sit with that. I need you to let it move through you slowly, because this understanding has the power to heal something in you that has been bleeding quietly for years. The isolation was not rejection. The isolation was consecration. Think about the dinner table. Think about the family gathering, the holiday meal, the Sunday afternoon when everyone was laughing and passing food, and somehow in the middle of all that warmth, you felt like a ghost. You smiled at the right moments. You passed the dishes. You answered the questions. How is work? How are things? You looked tired. And inside, something in you was screaming a language that no one at that table had the vocabulary for, not because they were bad people. Not because you were arrogant or too complicated or too much, the way they sometimes implied with a look or a sentence dropped casually like a small grenade. But because you were built to carry a frequency they were not designed to hold. Your stomach knows what this feels like. There is a specific tightening that happens right below the ribs when you are performing normalcy in a room full of people who love you but do not know you. A low hum of grief that has nowhere to go. So it just stays, folded beneath the conversation, invisible under the smile, swallowed down with every bite of food at a table that should have felt like home. And then there was the shower. Maybe you know exactly what I am talking about. The particular mercy of hot water running loud enough to cover the sound. The privacy of a closed door and steam thick enough to give you permission to let your face do what it has been refusing to do all day. In the shower, nobody needs anything from you. Nobody is watching. And so the thing you have been pressing down with both hands all week finally finds its way up through your throat. And you press your back against the tile, and you cry in a way that scares you a little, because it is too big, because it has been waiting too long, because it carries years inside it and not just today. Your body does this because your body knows what your mind has been trying to manage. The nervous system does not lie. The chest knows the weight of sustained loneliness even when the calendar is full. And in that sacred private space, something holy is actually happening. Because God has always met his most chosen ones in their most hidden moments. Not in the performance, in the breaking. He was in that shower with you. He heard the cry that had no audience. He counted every tear that mixed with the water and ran down the drain unseen by anyone else. The people at that table were not your tribe. I need to say this with love and with precision because there is a difference between dismissing people and discerning the difference between a launching pad and a landing place. The family that raised you, the environment that shaped your early years, they were not mistakes, they were assigned. But assigned as a pressure chamber, not as a destination. Every misunderstanding you experienced under that roof, every time your sensitivity was called weakness, every time your depth was called dramatic, every time your vision was met with silence or subtle ridicule, those were not random cruelties. They were spiritual chiseling. God was using the friction of misalignment to carve edges on you that smooth environments never could have produced. You cannot build a blade without resistance. You cannot strengthen a signal without testing it under interference. The very people who could not see you were, without knowing it, instruments in the hands of a God who was making you visible for an entirely different world. There is something important about the way light behaves in a room full of shadows. When a new source of brightness enters a dark space, the darkness does not simply receive it. It reacts. It contracts. It throws up interference. The people in your life who have reacted to your presence with irritation, with dismissal, with the quiet sharpening of their edges toward you, they were not reacting to your failures. They were reacting to your light. There is a specific restlessness that awakens in people who have made peace with their cages when someone who refuses the cage walks into the room. They cannot always name it. They call it arrogance. They call it sensitivity. They say you are too intense, too serious, too different, too much. But what they are really responding to is the activation of their own hunger, the part of them that remembers it was also made for more. And that memory is painful when you have decided not to follow it. Your presence reminded them of a road they stopped walking, and so they handed you the bill for their own unresolved longing, dressed up as critique about your personality. This is what the hidden envy always looks like. It does not come wearing a name tag. It comes wearing advice. It comes in the voice of someone who genuinely believes they love you, couched in the language of concern, softened with the warmth of a relationship that has history. You are too sensitive. You think too much. You always have to be different. Why can't you just be happy? Why do you always have to go so deep? And underneath every one of those sentences was a wound in the speaker that they had never tended, a dream they had buried, a calling they had silenced, a frequency they had learned to suppress because the world around them could not receive it either. And rather than do the terrifying work of excavating their own soul, it was easier to suggest that your unwillingness to suppress yours was a personality flaw. You absorbed those words. You let them settle. Some of them grew roots, and now you carry them like they are your own thoughts. The voice that says, maybe I really am too much, maybe I really am broken, maybe they were right. That voice is a lie, and you have to stop feeding it with your silence. You are not the first person God has hidden in plain sight while preparing something the world could not yet contain. Joseph did not understand why the pit was deeper than his dreams. He sat in that darkness with the memory of a coat his father gave him and a vision heaven had placed in him, surrounded by walls that had no explanation and no exit. He could not see that the pit was not punishment. It was positioning. He could not know that the very betrayal that broke his heart was the first coordinate in a trajectory that would end with him feeding nations. David was anointed in a field while his brothers stood in a palace. He went back to his sheep. He went back to the wilderness. He kept going back to smallness while the oil on his head dried and the years passed and nothing looked like a throne. And Jesus, the one who carried the fullness of God in human skin, was questioned, dismissed, and written off by the people who watched him grow up. They said, "Is this not the carpenter's son?" As if familiarity could disqualify what eternity had authorized. The ones closest to the source are often the last to recognize it. Your people not seeing you was never evidence that you were invisible to God. The black sheep in every family system carry something the system was not built to accommodate. This is not always a comfortable truth, but it is a liberating one. Every generation produces a carrier, someone whose spiritual bandwidth exceeds the inherited frequency of the bloodline. And the system, operating on self-preservation, instinctively tries to compress that carrier back into the shape it can manage. The pressure you have felt your entire life to be smaller, to want less, to dream quieter, to need less confirmation from God and more conformity with the group. That pressure was the system trying to manage what it could not contain. But compression does not extinguish fire. It builds pressure. And pressure, in the hands of the right architect, does not destroy a diamond. It creates one. What felt like the family trying to diminish you was actually in the economy of heaven, the very resistance training your spiritual muscles needed to carry what was coming. Here is what the interference from the enemy actually looks like from the inside. It does not announce itself. It does not tap you on the shoulder and say, "Hello, I am a spiritual assignment designed to block your clarity." It sounds like your own voice. It sounds like reasonable doubt. It says, maybe that prayer was just emotion. Maybe that confirmation was coincidence. Maybe that recurring scripture just happened to be in your reading plan at an inconvenient time. Maybe your discernment is actually anxiety with a spiritual veneer. The enemy is not interested in making you an atheist. The enemy is interested in making you distrust your own receiver, because if he can convince you that your signal is broken, he does not need to destroy you. You will simply sit down and stop broadcasting. The targeted confusion in your life, the specific moments where every spiritual antenna in you went suddenly quiet, the seasons where God felt like a concept instead of a presence, those were not spiritual failures. Those were electronic warfare against a signal the enemy knew was too dangerous to ignore. And the interference did not only come from outside, It came from the inside too, and this is the part that takes the most courage to look at. Because you were trained, somewhere along the way, to expect God to speak in thunder. You were taught, by culture, by tradition, by the emotional architecture of your upbringing, that if a confirmation was real, it would be undeniable, dramatic, signed and delivered in a way that required no faith, only receipt. And because God has been speaking to you in whispers, in the knowing that sits quiet but insistent in the center of your chest, in the dream you filed away as stress, in the strangest sentence that unlocked something in you and then you dismissed it by noon, you filtered out the very signals heaven was working hardest to send. You were so busy waiting for the burning bush that you walked past the still small voice 100 times and called it nothing. Heaven was never silent. Your filter was calibrated to miss it. As I teach deeply in the material, The 3 Keys to a Prosperous Life, I left the link for you in the pinned comment. This pain is not a sign that your faith is too small. It is a sign that your training has been too narrow. The expansion happening in you right now, the one that feels like disorientation and loss of familiar ground, is actually the recalibration of your receiver. God is not speaking louder. He is teaching you to hear differently. He is widening the bandwidth of your discernment so that you can receive what was always being broadcast. The shift you feel inside you, the way old certainties feel insufficient and old comforts feel hollow. That is not a crisis of faith. That is the architecture of your spiritual perception being rebuilt to match the size of what is coming. And the environment you have been standing in has been a third layer of interference, quieter but consistent. The spaces where you have spent your time, some of the relationships, some of the digital noise, some of the thought communities you have circled back to out of habit or familiarity, have been broadcasting at a frequency that drowns out the signal no matter how clearly heaven is transmitting. Not because those spaces are evil, not because the people in them are your enemies, but because frequency is not just spiritual, it is relational and environmental. You cannot tune into a high broadcast while surrounding yourself with low-frequency noise and simply willpower your way to clarity. At some point, the preparation requires the removal. And some of what has been leaving your life recently, some of the doors that have quietly closed, some of the connections that have faded without dramatic conclusion, was not loss. It was God removing the static. The cost of activation is something the triumphalist version of this story often skips, and I will not skip it for you, because you deserve the full picture. When your frequency shifts, when the signal that has been jammed finally clears and you begin to broadcast at the level you were designed for, not everyone in your range will receive it with celebration. Some will, but some will feel threatened by the change they cannot explain. Relationships that ran on the older, quieter version of you will encounter friction. People who loved you precisely because you were compressed into a manageable shape will feel something shift when you stop compressing. They will not always have language for what they are experiencing. They may call it pride, they may call it you changing. They may say you are not the same person you used to be, and they will be right, and they will mean it as an accusation, and you must learn to receive it as a confirmation. There is a moment in the scripture that carries more weight than it is often given. Lot's wife was being led out of a burning city by the mercy of God. She had been delivered. The destruction was behind her, the future was ahead, and the instruction was simple: do not look back. She looked back, and she became a pillar of salt, preserved forever in the posture of longing for what was destroying her. This is one of the most precise spiritual warnings ever embedded in a narrative, and it is aimed directly at the person who survives a wilderness season and then spends the deployment years grieving the wilderness. You are going to be tempted to look back, not at the obvious bad things. You have already released those. You're going to be tempted to look back at the false warmth, the approval you received when you were smaller, the belonging that came at the cost of your authenticity, the relationships that felt like love as long as you stayed compressed. That warmth was real on the surface, but it was built on a foundation of your diminishment. And if you turn back toward it, you will freeze in the very moment you were meant to move forward. The specific danger of looking back is not nostalgia. The danger is the appetite for the kind of approval that you have already outgrown. There is something in the human nervous system that equates familiar with safe. Even when familiar was the source of the wound, the enemy knows this, and he will not always come at you in your deployment season with obvious temptation. He will come with memory. He will show you a picture of the table you used to sit at, even though you sat at that table, invisible and aching. And he will filter it through sepia tones and call it home. He will remind you of the people who knew you before you activated, and he will suggest that what you have now is lonelier than what you had then. He will hold up the old cage and call it belonging. You have to be anchored enough in what God is building to look at that image with compassion for the person you were, without letting it pull you backward into the shape you have already shed. Here is the truth about solitude that will change the way you experience the next chapter of your life. Solitude and loneliness are not the same substance. They share a surface similarity, the absence of people, but their spiritual weight is entirely different. Loneliness is the ache of a person who needs connection and does not have it. It is a deficit. Solitude is the space God creates around a carrier when the carrier is between one season of community and the next. It is not permanent. It is not punishment. It is a clearing. In the space that feels empty right now, something is being prepared, not for you to continue occupying your current shape, but for the new tribe to recognize the new frequency. The relationships that are coming toward your life are not coming to the version of you that was compressed and invisible and performing at a low signal bandwidth. They are coming toward the activated version. And if you fill the solitude too quickly with low-frequency company just to silence the discomfort, you will delay the arrival of what was actually assigned. There is a generational dimension to what is happening in you, and it deserves to be named. You are not simply doing your own healing, you are breaking a chain. The patterns of invisibility, of swallowed truth, of belonging purchased at the cost of authenticity. These did not begin with you. They moved through your family tree like a current, bending every carrier who came before you back into conformity before they could broadcast at full strength. You are the one in the lineage who refused to bend all the way. You did not always know that was what you were doing. You thought you were just surviving. But your survival was itself a form of rebellion against a generational assignment to silence. Every time you kept praying despite the silence, every time you kept seeking despite the confusion, every time you refused to fully disconnect from the sense that you were made for more, you were pulling a thread that goes back further than your lifetime, breaking something your grandparents could not break, releasing something that will travel forward through the generations that come after you. And the body carries all of this. This is not only spiritual, it is physical, it is cellular, it is written in the nervous system's language of survival. The vigilance you carry in your body, the way you scan rooms before you fully enter them, the way you brace your jaw and your shoulders before difficult conversations, the way your stomach tightens when someone says your name in a certain tone. Those are not character flaws. Those are the biological residue of years spent navigating environments that were not built to receive you. Your nervous system learned to run interference of its own, a constant background processing of threat, rejection probability, social safety, because it needed to, in order to keep you alive in spaces that were quietly hostile to your frequency. The healing that God is doing in you right now is not only spiritual, it moves through the body, it releases the jaw, it drops the shoulders, it teaches the stomach to stop bracing for impact in rooms that are actually safe. The physical relaxation you will begin to feel as you step into your new territory is not comfort. It is confirmation. The story of Joseph cannot be told honestly without acknowledging what the pit actually cost him. It was not a narrative device. It was a real darkness, real confusion, real grief, real injustice. He did not experience it as preparation while he was inside it. He experienced it as betrayal. He experienced the cold floor and the absence of light and the silence of brothers who had looked him in the eyes and sold him anyway. And then he experienced the years in Potiphar's house, the quiet faithfulness that produced no visible reward. And then the prison, another season of doing right and being forgotten by the people who promised to remember him. The gap between his anointing and his activation was not comfortable. It was not peaceful. It was a sustained test of whether the vision was real enough to hold him when the circumstances argued powerfully against it. The fact that you are still here, still believing, still pursuing, still praying in the silence, that is not weakness. That is the exact quality that qualifies you for the throne. Something has shifted in the spiritual atmosphere around your life. I need you to feel the weight of this sentence, rather than just process it intellectually. The season of preparation is ending, not because you performed perfectly, not because you finally said the right prayer with the right posture and the right degree of faith, but because the timeline that heaven set in motion before you were born has reached its threshold. There is a time for calibration, and there is a time for deployment, and you have moved, whether it felt like movement or not, across that line. The interference is clearing. The static that was running against your clarity is losing its frequency hold. The confusion that felt permanent is beginning to thin, not because the enemy gave up, but because the authorization for your activation has been released, and darkness does not argue successfully with divine timing. You are stepping into a season where the things that used to be blurry will become clear at a speed that surprises you. God does not waste the wilderness, but he also does not keep you there forever. This is the promise that the waiting season tries to make you forget, that it has an end, that the preparation has a completion point, that the refinement finishes. The furnace stops, the pit gets a ladder, the prison releases its prisoner. The question was never whether you would be delivered from the hidden years. The question was always whether you would arrive at the threshold still carrying what heaven put in you, or whether you would set it down somewhere in the middle of the journey to make the weight more comfortable. You carried it. It is still in you. Whatever you laid down temporarily out of exhaustion, whatever parts of your vision you quietly folded away during the hardest seasons, they are not lost. They are waiting for you on the other side of this threshold, and they will feel more alive in your hands than they ever have before, because now you have the depth to hold them without them consuming you. The people who are assigned to your next chapter are being drawn toward your signal right now. Not metaphorically, actually, specifically, in the mechanics of divine orchestration that moves through human decision-making in ways that look like coincidence to the unaware. Someone is going to walk into your proximity in the coming season and feel something they cannot explain. A pull toward you, a recognition, a sense of familiarity with a stranger that bypasses logic. And they will say, I do not know why, but I feel like I am supposed to be here. That is not a personality quirk or a social accident. That is frequency finding frequency. Your new tribe is not being recruited, it is being magnetized. And the specific people who will walk into your life and see you, not the compressed version, not the performing version, but the actual you, will arrive already equipped to receive the signal you have spent years trying to transmit to people who were built for a different bandwidth. The atmosphere changes when a clear signal enters a space. This is not something that requires announcement or performance. It is simply the nature of broadcast. When you walk into a room in the fullness of your activated frequency, the atmosphere of that room shifts around you, not because you are trying to influence it, but because high-frequency presence is never neutral. You have already experienced a smaller version of this, moments when you walked into a space and something changed, when conversations deepened involuntarily, when people told you things they never planned to say, when the heaviness in a room either lifted or intensified depending on what you were carrying. That was not accident. That was preview. That was your signal touching the room at partial power. What is coming is the full broadcast. The territory that has been waiting for your frequency. The lives, the communities, the spheres of influence that were designed specifically to receive what you carry. They have no idea what is about to walk through their door. The season of solitude is giving way to the season of sacred assembly. Not a crowd, a tribe. There is a difference that your spirit already knows. A crowd receives your performance. A tribe receives your presence. A crowd applauds your output. A tribe is strengthened by your being. What God is building around you is not a following, it is a family. The family your soul has always been looking for at dinner tables where you felt invisible. The tribe that is being drawn toward your frequency will sit across from you, and your eyes will not glaze over. You will not need to compress yourself to maintain the connection. You will not perform. You will simply arrive. And for the first time in your long history of being in rooms full of people who could not see you, you will feel what it is to be truly, accurately, specifically seen. You are not behind. I need to say this to the part of you that has been keeping a mental calendar of all the things that should have happened by now, all the timelines that did not unfold on schedule, all the dreams that seem to have aged in the waiting. You are not behind. Heaven does not operate on your projected timeline, and the gap between your anointing and your activation was not a subtraction from your story, it was an addition. The years of preparation added something to you that the fast version of this journey never could have produced. The depth you carry right now, the capacity for compassion that comes from having survived real confusion and real silence, the ability to stand in the presence of someone who is in their own pit and say, I know what this is. These are not things that can be rushed into existence. They are forged, and you are finished being forged. The chains that have bound your bloodline, the silence, the invisibility, the compression of calling into conformity, the inherited fear of taking up too much space, they are breaking in your hands right now. Not dramatically, not with a single prayer or a single decision. They are breaking the way dawn breaks, gradually, then all at once, and then suddenly irreversible. You are the generation in your lineage that stops handing the cage to the next one. You are the one who chooses, in the fullness of what it costs, to walk out of the inherited pattern and into the exposed, terrifying freedom.